Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Kyle here. Welcome to my channel once again. And I know I've been talking a lot about the holographic code and like all these things, expounding upon my own perception of reality and how holographic reality, and that, how did I come to these things? I don't claim to know. I may say things as if they are truths, but they are only true to me. Truth is relatively relative.
Relatively relative.
But my truth comes from personal experience, just like most of our truths should come from actual personal experiences instead of authoritative commandments, right? We have science that tell us truths, but who funds these studies? And usually if you fund a study, you're gonna want your own bias attached to it, right? Because you're paying so much money. You're gonna want it to say what you want it to say, but this is going into a whole other thing. Basically, trust your own personal perceptions and experiences to come to an understanding of reality. Use knowledge, right? Use information, but always vet it against your own personal experiences. Now I know this might be difficult because nowadays, most of us lack the ability to go out and experience things. We get caught in the rut of social conditioning, social structure of get up, go to work, come home, eat, go to bed, sleep, wake up, go to work. Repetition, this cyclical nature. Thus it becomes really hard to experience things outside of that, right? And that is shared by everybody, and this creates this box of conditioning because everyone else is reinforcing your perceptions, and thus it becomes hard to shift those perspectives, especially when certain experiences happen to you that are outside of what the majority believe. Then you become the outcast, right? It becomes hard to share your experiences because no one else has any kind of point of reference in which to compare your experience with theirs, and become an outcast. And you become isolated because it's hard to find other people with those like experiences. And I guess this is all leading into me and my story of why I say these things that I say on this channel. So years ago, I was in the military, right? I was in the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps while still in high school in my senior year. Once I turned 18, secretively, I did not tell any family members until after I joined. Anyways, I go through my time in the military, and after my 2 tours in Iraq, I got in trouble for driving drunk friends. Like, it's a whole intricate story, but I got in trouble. And the first day, right when it first happened, it was, you were helping friends, you were helping your brothers, because they were drunk, you were sober, and you were driving them. Good for you. And then the next day, they're like, we have to do something, we're gonna take your rank and take some pay. And then the next day, it's like, we're just gonna kick you out. Which would be other than honorable, taking all my benefits away and making it like I was never in the military to begin with, which makes it hard to get jobs. You don't have the education paid for, you don't have any of the health benefits, you don't have any of these things anymore, right? It's gone. And the reality of this being my payment for serving in Iraq twice.
I did not enjoy this.
So these experiences, on top of many experiences and a weird childhood and like all these different things, it was a culmination of times. And thus I pursued different drugs. After I was already told I was getting kicked out, it's like, okay, what's the point anymore? What does it matter? Because it was just after this happened, and then somebody presented themselves. I didn't even know him before. He was part of my unit. I'd never met him before, but because I was on restriction, it was during Christmas. Everyone left, so it was just us people that got in trouble, hanging out. And so I met this guy, he told me about some pills, and so we started doing all these things. It went to a point of an overdose, a drug overdose. And during this drug overdose, I got to experience many different things, of which being thrust into the instantaneous experience of a multitude of lifetimes. So that's a jarbly way of saying it, but it is like a condensed experiencing of lifetimes, to where I felt myself as there. I felt myself in that body at that time, having a daughter, being in battle. There's a couple different lifetimes, but it was like this correlation of experience instantaneously, opening my mind to the possibility that reality is not as real as we've been told. More months go by because this, got me more in trouble within the military, right? Having a drug overdose is not wise, especially when you're already getting kicked out. But luck was on my side. They couldn't find anything in blood, blah, blah, blah. So I still got my other than honorable. I got out months later. And that's a whole nother story, because I went to the brig, I went to the military prison, and then once I got out, I had another overdose. So there's a whole slew of experiences all within there, which I'm writing about in a book actually, about these different experiences and what I actually experienced during this 4 or 5 months of exploring dirty psychedelics, actually. And so after actually getting out, I start studying. I still have a lot of issues. I've become an alcoholic. There's all this stuff in there. But in this time, I started experimenting with mirror gazing, meditation, staring, Hindu philosophy, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and different ideas of spirituality, because now I was like, whoa, what is this? Right? What happened to me? Basically, was what I was trying to figure out. What was I experiencing in these times? So after I got out, I go home, most of my money's gone, I don't have any money. I used the last of my money to actually get home, to pay for the gas to drive my car home. And I sold most of my stuff to even get the money to do that to my roommates. And there's a whole lot of stuff in there as well. Stuff's being stolen from me, being missing. It's a whole thing with me in the military now. But so after I get home, I'm still struggling with a lot of things and trying to digest everything that's happened to me, not just those psychedelic phenomena and those experiences of different lives, experiencing different lives, but also being kicked out of the military, having to start all over. Now I'm thrust into this society. I have my PTSD, I have all this stuff, but I can't be treated from it because I'm seen as not being a part of the military anymore. And so I'm trying to integrate everything. So I start studying Hinduism, different philosophies of spirituality, the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, different spiritual teachers that I could find on YouTube to try to understand more of, like, okay, what happened to me in that time? Like, I'm experiencing different lifetimes, this light, this holographic representation of one moment I'm in one space and the next moment I'm in another space. I'm teleporting around, like all these weird experiences. I'm trying to figure out and come to an answer with this. A year and a half goes by, right? Okay, I get home and I'm studying all these things. I end up having a girlfriend. I move in with her. She's got 3 kids. Yeah, not the wisest of decisions. I have a good job. I just got promoted. All these nice things are happening from the external perception of my life. But inside, I'm still experiencing like, but this isn't the life I want. Like, from those experiences of different lives and those psychedelic phenomenon, I started in the questioning of the solidity of reality and what is reality. I started to feel that this social structure isn't right. I couldn't explain it. I was still trying to figure it out, still trying to learn. But it was a deep-seated feeling of something's off about this way of life. It's like, even when I was working, it's like I could feel like it's destroying my soul. It's eating me away. It's like a vampire sucking my energy away. And I could feel it, but I couldn't explain it, and I didn't know what else to do. And then one day, I go for a drive after work, go smoke a little spliff, pondering these things, like, okay, what's going on? But a voice comes to me, and with a strong feeling, right? I have to go to Costa Rica. Now, I've been to Costa Rica once before for like a couple of hours during a cruise that I went with my parents. And I've always liked Central America and the tropics and things, as I think most of us do. But it was this very strong feeling of like, yes, I have to go. And this feeling of like, I have to go. And so I go home, I start looking up, so what's in Costa Rica that would be of interest for me? And so doing some research, I found this place called the Sat Yoga Institute, and I'm like, okay, there's something there. And then at some point in time, we got into a fight. That's what it was. I got into a fight with my girlfriend about money. And it hit me. I'm like, this is an opportunity. This is the universe presenting me with an opportunity to go forth. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna break up. And then that very night, it was like 9 o'clock at night, she packed up, she drove me an hour to my mom's house, and then she had to drive an hour back. She was very kind, she was very, like, it worked very well, considering the situation and what was going on. And so we broke up, I ended up with my mom. I took that time to sell the things I had and could sell in that time, and buy my plane ticket, prepare, because I've never done this before. It was a big leap of faith. I didn't have a lot of money, but it was like, okay, since I don't have a lot of money and I have no idea what's going to happen, I'm gonna buy a machete, I'm gonna buy a tarp. I've been in the military, I can live out in the forest, in the jungles, like I can make something happen. Like, whatever happens, it's better than going through this social confine, this prison that we've constructed for ourselves. So off I go, carrying this big sea bag on my shoulders, a big backpack on my back, and then a backpack in the front. So I'm loaded with all this stuff, and I'm just gonna go off to Costa Rica. I have like $150, and I'm gonna see what happens. Leap of faith. As for that, I'm gonna have to do another video to actually go, because there's so many of these things that have happened, and it'll be a huge long video to share all these stories. If this type of story interests you, of becoming awakened and going through these leaps of faith, testing things, being ostracized, you could say, from social conditioning and trying to find my way through it, give me a subscribe, because I'm gonna have to continue this story into different parts because it's a very long story and I don't want to just make a huge long video. So with that, thank you so much and talk to you next time.